Spider-Man 2 didn't win any awards this year. Do you know why? Because of a Miles Morales original.
What the?
That suit's not an alien, is it? It's time for a Miles Morales original, you know?
No! What is
One
with
of
the
one.
hair, bro?
It looks good.
No, it doesn't.
But seriously, it's because they created a sequel worse than the original. Honestly, it's below both of its predecessors. Spider-Man 1, even before the DLC, and Miles Morales offer a superior amount of content and better stories. This does not make Spider-Man 2 a bad game, but it is undoubtedly lower ranked than those two. That level of performance was never going to hold up against the other heavy hitters this year. In this video, I'll be taking a look at what I think Insomniac did well and what they fell short on, starting with the improvements. To start, the web slinging is absolutely a blast. It's seamless just like the original, but with more traversal options like the web wings, air jumps, and air leaps. Those options are a godsend considering how large the map is now. The ability to remove swinging assist is also a nice addition for anyone that really values that type of realism. I turned mine down to around 5, so I wasn't going splat all the time, but also maintained more control of my swings. I love that option, and I hope they have something like that in every single Spider-Man game with web swinging from now on. I'd say the combat is better overall. They cut down on the number of gadgets, but there are once again more options for how to fight. Considering we're using 2 characters that each get 8 unique abilities to choose from in addition to 4 universal gadgets, that's a lot of variety for players. And I'm not sure how best to describe it, but each ability is incredibly satisfying to use. My favorites are Miles' yellow venom attacks and Peter's symbiote abilities. The upgrades we can get through the skill tree grant enough variation that the combat shouldn't ever get stale. At least not to me, as I was always able to figure out some new combo options thanks to a new power that I'd gotten. They did remove the combat wheel we used in prior games. I'm kind of indifferent to that choice. Each ability is tied to L1 and one of the primary buttons. The gadgets are the same, but with R1. Since we can only use 4 abilities at once, there is no time stop like in Spider-Man 1. Now, I didn't dislike the time slowing for power use reasons, especially because it gives you a chance to see the entire field, but now the flow of a battle always continues uninterrupted. It's just a different experience. I can't say that it's outright better. Then, the suit-specific abilities from the first game have been replaced by a single super move. Miles has the Mega Venom Blast, which is a smaller version of what he does at the end of his game, and Peter has Surge, a combat mode that allows you to spam the symbiote abilities. Do either of these significantly change the gameplay? Not really, but they're awesome to use. While I personally felt as though Peter's arms were a bit lackluster in comparison to the Venom Sting powers, I have seen a number of other people that did enjoy them just as much, if not more so. There's something for everybody, I guess. Boss battles are miles better than the other games as well, with my favorite being Peter versus Scream and then Peter's section of the Venom battle. I played through the game on Spectacular, so I feel like I got the full experience of spectacle and challenge that the developers were aiming for. Nothing felt too cheap or too damage spongy, and when there were multiple phases, each felt unique. For example, Scream and Peter alternate between 3 different locations in the midst of a bunch of relationship ending level revelations.
I read it! It helped me!
All I do is help you!
MJ,
My life is constantly interrupted by you! Looking for answers, leads, because you lost a job or can't pay a bill! You always were arrogant!
Oh, the homegirl abusive.
Yeah, bro, abusive.
The homegirl domestic violence.
Yes, bro.
Miles' battle against Mr. Negative ends up taking a dive into a shadowy realm representing Miles' consciousness as another example. It all keeps things fresh during the fights. And man, the side missions are amazing this time around. Well, most of them. The Brooklyn Visions quests were all lame as hell, but I know what Insomniac was going for. That's their high school Spider-Man, so give him stuff to do with the high schoolers. It's kind of weird when you think about it, because why would Spider-Man specifically help out one school unless he goes there? I digress. The Mysterio side quests and Cult of the Flames missions are super engaging. I don't have much to say outside of I love the stories they tell. Each of the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man missions are also well written and emotionally impactful. They're definitive improvements over the prior games. You want to talk about feeling like a Spider-Man? These will do it, especially Howard's or the search for a woman's grandfather. Actually, let me gush about Howard's mission because it took me off guard during my playthrough. So in the previous games, you're able to help out this guy named Howard with catching his pigeons. These usually came about as some form of traversal trial. This time around, he asked Spidey, either one, to find them a new home because he's about to take a journey that he can't bring them on. I'm thinking he's just leaving town, so I took Miles and flew around New York to the opposite end where their new home will be. About halfway through, it starts dawning on me that the journey Howard was talking about is not a physical one. Not fully. So when Spidey attempts to contact him during the mission and he doesn't respond, the whole point of his request hits home.
Find a place for my babies to be free.
Thought of a place over in Queens. My mom showed it to me when I was little. Lots of nature and space for Pidgey and friends.
That sounds nice. Thanks. Not many folks have been kind to me in my life.
Anytime, Howard. It's a new borough, but it's still close enough for you to visit. I'll get this bird settled and be right back. Howard? Hope y'all like the new digs. Gotta make sure Howard's okay. Can't be easy when the birds leave the nest. No. Howard?
Looks like natural causes. Oh, hey, Spider-Man.
Sorry. Howard was a friend.
Take all the time you need. If it helps, it looked like he was at peace.
It does. He's on a new adventure now. And his wife's with him.
Whatever Howard was afflicted with, he held on long enough to make sure his birds were taken care of. It's simple, but it works so well. I love it. What else is there? Oh, I also have to give props for the incredible lack of load times. I didn't need to fast travel much, but whenever I did or I switched characters, it was pretty much instant. So interestingly enough, the main things Insomniac improved upon are technical feats. Now we get to where everything went wrong, which are the decisions for what content to include in the game and the narrative. To start, did you notice that you seem to fight the same enemies all the time, no matter the circumstances? That's because you did. Spider-Man 2 has 3 total enemy factions. 3. If you think that's fine, the original had 6 and Miles Morales had 5. Why does the official sequel have less enemies than an expansion? You really feel this lack of variety during the first 2/3 of the game because the final enemy type doesn't appear until the 3rd act. So you spend most of the game fighting thugs or talents. Insomniac clearly attempted to make up for this by increasing the number of enemy types within the factions, but again, you're going to see everything they have to offer by the midway point. I believe that to be a significant reason for why the second act drags so much. There is technically a 4th faction in the Cultists, but they don't appear during the main quest at all. Considering their skill set is also completely different from the rest, the game really would have benefited from having them show up outside of random crimes and the Cult of the Flames missions. The next place they drop the ball is in the general amount of content. Remember how I said they improved the web slinging and combat by a lot? Well, there are no traversal or time trials to perform in the sequel. There are some combat trials, which are Mysterio's missions, but they are Miles specific. So there's no combat trials for half of the game. You only get to flex your battle prowess as Peter in random crimes? What kind of bull is that? Then, I cannot fathom the reason why they would put so much effort into further improving the web slinging and then not keep some form of trial for it. They had these in the first 2 games, and the coverable area has doubled. This should be a playground for us as players to discover new and interesting ways around the environment. We can do that on our own, of course, but there's something nice about being able to beat a known record and receive some in-game reward. And the same goes to the Mysterio houses, which are the only combat trials in the game. Those missions were fun to do. I would seek them out as soon as I knew they were available in a district. It forces you to interact with all of the abilities just to figure out how to shave a few seconds off of your win condition, which makes you appreciate the combat side more. So why can only Miles do these missions? My theory is that they did their best to give each spider a fair amount of content, meaning about half and half in the game, like they did to the suits, which, oh boy, I have a huge issue with. So the Mysterio questline is given only to Miles since most of the main story is given to Peter. I suppose they figured that this way you get to enjoy both characters to the same amount, except only one of these missions are replayable. Why are there no replayable missions in an action game? I don't understand it. And for the final bit of content, we look at the suits. The number of suits is not really the problem for me, it's what they chose for Peter's outfits. Something like half of them are movie suits, which means we have like 6 iterations of the default red and blue, some of which have only the tiniest of differences. I'm mostly looking at the MCU outfits because they blow hard. The Sam Raimi fits are some of the best designed ones in the game, but the other basic red and blue suits feel like they take up too much space. They could have been replaced with something more unique, like the Incredible Bagman or Enigma Force Spidey. Or better yet, the actual Spider-Verse version of Peter Parker. Why only use Noir? Bro. And oh man, don't get me started on that garbage Miles pulled up in for the final mission. A Morales original? He made his starter suit with Genki in the previous game. That's the Morales original. The new one even looks more like Peter's suit than his default. Like, what the hell? I wasn't surprised in the least when I discovered that it was a promotion with Adidas. I can't believe Insomniac allowed that in as the ultimate suit. I just can't. I'd be less harsh on it if they covered his hair up, I guess. It's the goofiest part.
What happened, man?
See, now it's fine. That mask is not
I
it, bro.
got the meteorite.
The mask is not it.
I couldn't stop him.
Brother, I hate your mask. It's just the mask. That's the only thing I have an issue with. It's the top of the head. The way it cuts off just looks weird.
Now for the real meat and potatoes, the narrative. Spider-Man 2's plot is good, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't reach the same crescendo the first 2 games do. I mentioned earlier that one gameplay reason was the enemy variety, but there are other issues that are inherently linked between the story and the game mechanics. As much as I loathe to say this, using 2 protagonists here feels like a mistake. Not the concept of it, no, but at least Insomniac's implementation. First off, Miles is generally more fun to play than Peter, at least for the entire first act. His power set is flashier, and since he shares gadgets with Peter, he stands out way more. Pete doesn't pick up until like midway through the second act when he gets multiple symbiote abilities. Now, it isn't a negative to have one character be more engaging in gameplay than another, especially since that's totally subjective. However, leaving one of your primary characters with basically nothing to do for most of the game is a huge mistake. Both things work together to the detriment of the overall experience. In the main plot, Miles has essentially nothing to do. His character revolves around wanting to be a better Spider-Man and writing a college essay. He's essentially there for plot convenience since he always pulls things together when Pete goes off the rails or fails at something. His interactions with Martin Lee are fantastic, and I wish there was more of that, but there isn't enough there for a full game, so I get it.
You took from me.
Because Miles has no real relevance for most of the plot, playing with him honestly feels like a waste of time at certain points. You're only going to pick him for side content, of which he gets more of than Peter to make up the difference. So if you ignore any of said side content, you'll be playing with Pete about 75% of the time, which isn't great, at least not for me, because Miles is more fun to play until the third act. And this boils down to how Insomniac chose to do the story. The issue is fundamental. They adapted 3 big stories from the Spider-Man mythos for this. We have Kraven's Last Hunt, the Black Suit Saga, and The King in Black. Miles has no involvement in any of these stories within the comics, which leaves the responsibility of incorporating him totally to Insomniac. That loops right back to my previous point. The next issue with this is making Harry be Venom. Harry becoming Venom removes the whole hatred of Spidey, or Peter Parker, angle from the end of what is generally considered the Black Suit Saga. It's replaced with Venom's desire to get Peter to join him in healing the world, a warped take on Harry's desires.
We can give that gift to everyone. But we need you with us, Pete. Heal the world.
I find that replacement adequate and compelling, but my problem with it is that Venom and Harry end up totally different characters. The person we're fighting in the third act is not the same man that we've spent time with in the first 2. Compared to Eddie Brock, who goes so far as to pray to God for Peter Parker's downfall and then fully embraces the symbiote, it simply doesn't work. There are a few scenes at the end of Harry clearly being used as nothing more than a host for the symbiote as he begs for it to stop what it's doing.
What's happening? Just hang on, buddy! Please, no. Leave him alone.
So we're clearly fighting the symbiote, not Harry at the end. He's just collateral damage due to his genetic illness. Both Doc Ock and the Tinkerer are characters we watch gradually decline until their comeuppance or remorse for their actions kicks in, respectively. I'm sure it was a common feeling, especially for everyone that recognizes the name Otto Octavius, to constantly dread the Doctor's experiments gradually getting worse. His final state is foreshadowed heavily through his work until it activates in the end, leading to catastrophe. Finn, the Tinkerer, is much the same, where she is so stubbornly focused on destroying Roxxon for revenge that she doesn't realize she might help destroy her neighborhood in the process, leading to her redemption through sacrifice. Harry isn't guilty of anything but wanting to survive his illness, the same illness that his mother died of. There's no character arc to watch for him. He was a good guy caught in bad circumstances. It also forces the rushing of Peter's gradually declining mental state and increasing aggression. As a result, we don't get a chance to sit with Pete being a dick to everyone around him before he realizes he needs to stop. It's like he gets the suit, goes on 2 missions.
Before we get down to business, there's something I have to tell you. I'm fresh out of honey.
And then turns into Gollum. I think if we'd had more time to have him get worse to everyone, maybe by making it so that Harry didn't immediately start dying once the symbiote was removed, they could have believably had Harry turn on Peter, for real. That would have made the final battles much more cathartic. We aren't given enough time to spend in the symbiote-infested world either. Once that amazing Venom sequence is over, it's go time until you get to freely swing around in 2 separate sections. There is no space to actually appreciate the impacted city as a whole, like we can in Web of Shadows or in the first game after Devil's Breath was released. Venom's portrayal is fantastic for what it had to work with, but he's not reaching Doc Ock's in Spider-Man 1 or even the Tinkerer in Miles Morales purely because there is no emotional attachment built up over the course of the game. We are attached to Harry. We know Harry. and we've known about his illness since the first game. This is why I really believe Venom's portrayal would have been much more impactful if Harry actually agreed with the symbiote, at least up until the end, where he recognizes he's wrong or something. Also, Insomniac, you created an entire Venom moveset and only let us play with him for 8 minutes, and then never again. Part of me thinks you guys hate us for that.
Tell the other floors to evacuate.
Bro, why am I getting... Oh my gosh! Bro, I want Insomniac to make a Hulk game now.
My last issue with this game's narrative is Kraven. Not with his portrayal, because he has the best one in my opinion, but with what he is able to accomplish. We don't get to fight him as regular Peter, nor do we get to see him take out Spidey's rogues gallery, all of which serve to diminish our attachment or belief in his abilities. I don't understand how Insomniac could have decided to have this regular guy show up and off most of the Sinister Six while only showing footage of one kill. That's something we should have gotten to see. Barring that, why not allow us to fight him as regular Peter so that when we get the run back as symbiote Spidey, the players also feel as though they are getting revenge. Peter was pissed as hell, but all I was thinking was, finally, I've heard so much about this guy through his army, let's see how he actually fights. I don't think Insomniac put in the work to make players as invested as they could have. All in all, this game was a step down from its predecessors. This does not mean it was bad. I didn't even notice a lot of these problems until just after I'd beaten it. The game is kind of a whirlwind like that. Hopefully, they can bring it all together for Spider-Man 3. Or Miles Morales 2. Whatever they decide to do. Thanks for listening. Leave your thoughts down below. Leave a like if you liked the video. And until next time, stay blessed. Insomniac, please add a combat mode where we can play as Venom. Please, I am begging you. Or a survival mode like the Arkham series has. I just want to play as Venom again and not have to replay the whole game to do it.